follow for a transition plan. So they will follow that transition plan because it has been passed by the board.
Yes, Trustee Atomic.
So, do we understand that the board has given pre-approval for that transition plan to be part of policy, even though all the decisions have not yet been made? Or does it have to come back to this board for approval of the decisions made by that transition group as far as transportation is concerned?
My understanding of this process is that the board, in part of its recommendations in the review, strikes an implementation committee, which is to create the changeover processes, the transitions, as we call it, the transitions as we go through the process of closing the school and transferring students. And as the board has struck that committee, then they will carry out those plans. Superintendent Karaszynski, would you like to elaborate on that?
Yes, that would be correct, that the transition plans are brought forward, and I believe in one of the meetings that it came to board, and it was discussed at board, and it was passed through the minutes. I believe Trustee Clark can expand on that, and then NSTS takes their direction from the board minutes.
Thank you. Trustee Clark, could you elaborate as well?
I think it would be a mistake to think of those as a policy. It's more a procedure, and part of the procedure in closing the school and transitioning students. And that procedure will take place over a given period of time, and then the board policy will become effective for those areas.
Thank you. Trustee Lowe, you have an item?
I was going to mention that in the years I've served on the transportation appeals, I never remember changing or doing anything to the policy to grant any change. And when you put it in the light with the Niagara Catholic Board and our board, we have a framework to work to, and any violation of that framework is going to cause, we'd say, a problem with our agreement. Putting it on a practical level, the trustees were sitting on this committee. It was becoming very time-consuming. I don't mind going and attending those meetings, but when you know that anytime you may change, or if you were to go with make a decision about this appeal in favor of the parents, it would violate the policy. And I think that was made very clearly made by our Superintendent Jane Ruth. And also, when you think in terms of the day-to-day operations, trustees are supposed to be involved in policy, not in the day-to-day operations. So I see no problem in disbanding the Appeals Committee and Transportation Appeals Committee. And if you look at it in terms of the parent, they're getting a very clear message that the trustees or the board, our school board and the Catholic board are following the policy and being very precise. And if there is an appeal, it could come forward, and I'm sure our Superintendent Linda Karaszynski will look at the hazard. Let's say your child is walking along a certain street, and the parent may think it's a hazard, but we have experts at Niagara Student Transportation Services who are trained in hazards. If there's a difficulty in terms of special education, we have people as a resource there. So I see no problem. There are actually 4 things identified at the bottom of the first page for you. And so I think it's a wise decision to disband the committee and put it in the hands of the staff to make that decision. Because if I were to call Superintendent Karaszynski about my son or daughter, then she would contact Lori Powell, and the 2 of them would look at it, and they would say no, based on the policy, and no, if there's not a safety hazard, if that's the case, then it would be denied to them. So I think it's wise to leave it in the hands of the staff. I hope I'm to wording.
Thank you. I also need to just point out that if you're not aware, that Superintendent Rose is the chair of the board of the NSTS. That is the correct title, I believe?
The chair of the board of directors, chair of the management advisory committee this year.
Thank you, chair of the board. You heard it. Obviously, I can't repeat it tonight. And so she can also, in her presence there, make sure on our behalf that our coterminous board is upholding the policies and that NSTS is treating both boards fairly and equitably, and that neither one of us are making decisions outside the agreement that will have impact on the other system as well as on the other system's budget. And so we're lucky to have her representation there. Trustee Lemon.
Thank you, Chair Fulford. Unfortunately, Trustee Love, I'm going to say the exact opposite things that you said, because unfortunately, over a 4-month period of time, first of all, the Transportation Appeal Committee needs to continue. Also, over a 4-month period of time, through the process that you described should take place. Well, sir, just so you know, over a 4-month period of time, that process took place, and then finally the parent called me and said, I can't do this, I need your assistance. And we did end up going in February of last year to an appeals meeting. And just so you know, that appeals meeting and informations and that discussions there actually returned that child who had a medical problem back to where that child needed to be for their opportunities, and that appeals committee worked well for that family. And I'm very proud to say that I only had one appeal to attend, but everything didn't go as you described it. I will vote against this motion. Thank you.
I'd just like to point out that one of the items that was discussed and made clear was that anything that falls outside of the policy that includes an illness, a safety issue, something that may be to be addressed in terms of compassion on a particular level, will come to the superintendents. That appeal process in part is still there. It just does not need to be heard by trustees. We'll leave it in the hands of the people who are dealing with those issues and can make those decisions fairly and equitably for all the students in the board, not just for the students that I represent or you represent or whatever, because we're able to help make a stronger case. We want to make sure that each person is treated fairly in those issues. And so I understand what you said, that you were able to help them, and I'm really glad that you were, but the issue that you addressed, an illness or whatever, then those kinds of issues will still go forward. It's not that there's a flat denial. It will just be heard at a different level than with the trustees. Do we have something new to hear? First from Trustee Lamont, a second from Trustee Tamanek, and then I will call the question.